This is the captain again. I'll introduce you now to the overhead panel on this aircraft. If you care to look up between the pilots is the panel which houses the ancillary equipment and the fire warning and discharge equipment. Starting with the left panel, these guarded switches are the hydraulic power switches to the ailerons, elevators, spoilers and rudders. They are left in the guard position. There is a legend underneath advising which hydraulic source powers each flight control. Going down the panel, these are the switches for the yaw damper, which are always engaged unless there's a malfunction. In swept wing aircraft, unless we have a yaw damper, we have a situation called Dutch roll, which often occurs. And these switches here are for the auto brakes. We can arm the auto brakes for takeoff and landing. We have settings, minimum, medium and maximum braking. Usually minimum is used unless we have a wet runway or a short runway, in which case we'll use medium and possibly maximum. These switches are the anti-skid and the body gear steering. Each wheel has anti-skid, the main body wheels and the wing. And we have hydraulic power to the body gear, which turns the gear in the opposite direction to the way the aircraft is turning for close-in turning. It prevents scrubbing of the wheels. This lower panel, all the lights for the aircraft, landing lights, runway turn-off, navigation, beacon, strobe and logo. These are the fire switches for the number 1 and the number 2 engine. And underneath the fire switch are the fire bottle discharge switches. There are 2 fire bottles per engine, left bottle and right bottle. To discharge the bottles, the fire switch is pulled and the bottles are discharged. These are the engine ignition switches. Starting engines on the ground, we go to ground start. In flight, if we require ignition due turbulence, we go to flight start. It gives continuous ignition. These 3 switches are for the inertial navigation systems. They are presently in nav. These are the compass select panels. We can fly in slave or we can realign our compasses using DG mode. These are the alternate gear extends, electrical system. The hydraulic system for the landing gear fails. We can extend the gear electrically, nose, body and wing gear. This is an evacuation signal panel. For landing, the evacuation signal is armed. The evacuation is required. It is selected to on. You get a flashing light and a chime in the cockpit and throughout the cabin, advising that the aircraft must be evacuated. Going back to the top, we have fire detection systems for the wheel wells, the APU and the cargo compartment. Passing down this panel, we have a standby ignition system in case we have a multiple engine failure. Emergency light system, which activates automatically on loss of power. This panel here is to call the cabin. No smoking, fasten seatbelts, ground crew call. These switches here are for the windshield washers and windshield wipers. Very similar to an automobile. We have low settings, high settings, and washers if required. These are only used on takeoff and landing. Passing back up this panel. Engine fire switches for engines 3 and 4 on the right wing. Same ignition. Passing down here an electrical backup system for the flaps for the aircraft. Leading edge flaps, trailing edge flaps can be extended electrically in the event of a pneumatic in the case of leading edge, and hydraulic in the case of the trailing edge flap failure. This is the HF radio panel where we select single sideband radio for en route long range communication. In the last section of this panel we have stall warning panel. It's heated, marked airspeed warning. The cell anti-ice, which supplies heating to the engine cowling, the fan inlet, the rotor, which is usable in flight and on the ground in icing conditions. The wing anti-ice is only usable in flight. It is rarely required. Probe heaters. Probe heaters are heated continuously. If we do not use the probe heating, our engine indications would be erratic and incorrect. Window heating. For the forward windows, the captain's and the first officer's window, we have 3 layers in each window, and the windows are quite thick and very strong. Heating the windows aids prevention from cracking from impact with birds. In the centre of the aircraft is a standby compass, which is the same basic instrument that you'll find on all aeroplanes. And this mirror here is so the captain can see the position of the flap lever without having to lean across and look on the other side of the throttle quadrant. In the landing phase, when we retard the thrust levers, we then select reverse thrust, pull it up vertically, and that redirects the airflow of the engines to retard the aircraft on the runway. As we slow down through 80 knots, we deselect reverse thrust to prevent ingestion of foreign matter into the engines. These are the start levers, which are used during the starting phase of the aircraft. And that is an overview of the overhead panel and the centre quadrant. Thank you.